Give the lesson in order.
Okay. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي سلسل أسانيد أهل العلم إلى أشرف المخلوقات وجعلها متصلة غير منقطعة إلى سيد البريات والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المخلوقات. أما بعد, we near the end of our lessons of Mustalah al-Hadith. इंशाअल्लाह आखिरी दर्स मुस्तलाह al-Hadith को शुरू करते हैं और इसमें इंशाअल्लाह कुछ फ़वाइद हदीसी बयान करेंगे और उसके बाद हम इंशाअल्लाह ख़त्म करते हैं. I'm not joking, we're not gonna do it in Urdu. I'm really joking. Last time as well. There's one actually particular thing, a riwayah bil ma'na thing I have. Hold on. Had this riwayah bil ma'na thing.
Mahdi, you have to give, man. Alhamdulillah, you should give.
MashaAllah. All right. So you have the first thing about narrating from your book versus if you don't know the narration. So just narrating from a book, and we spoke about people who have done this before, narrating from books, kitabs, without having this hadith mahfuz. And some of the people who are sort of very extreme in terms of not allowing this, they needed this hadith to be memorized when it was transmitted, and this is transmitted from Malik, Abu Hanifa, Abu Bakr as-Saydalani, as-Shafi'i. Some people who were really easy about it, meaning if you had the hadith in the book but you didn't transmit it, it's completely. But you transmitted it from the book and you didn't have this hadith memorized, this was completely fine. For example, Abdullah bin Lahi'a, and he's the famous guy his house burned down and his books burned down with it. And that's why people like Sufyan al-Thawri, who narrated from Abdullah bin Lahi'a before the advent of his house burning down, this hadith, the hadith were accepted. But people who narrated from Abdullah bin Lahi'a afterwards, then it wasn't accepted. Abdul Sattar, mashallah. Alaikum salam. And I've got this diagram here. Should be on my recents. Yeah, but I need to put the thing in first. Hold on. Assalamu alaikum. Okay, and then you have people who are like in the in-between. So if you allowed, if you had this hadith and you had, if you had it memorized, right, then you could sort of transmit this if you were sure of the authenticity of this hadith. You know, these are the people who are mu'tadilun in this regard. And then you have حكم رواية الضرير الذي لا يحفظ ما سمعه. So, you know, a person who does not remember what they transmit, you know, كالبصير الأمي الذي لا يحفظ, someone who cannot memorize, so someone who's like a blind individual. So what do we say regarding the narration of this of individual? And you know, there's a difference of opinion regarding this, but you know, it's accepted according to the majority. And then you have riwayah bil ma'na, and we spoke about riwayah bil ma'na before this, and the conditions for riwayah bil ma'na. But we have an example of this here. So the Salaf, Salihun, the Muhadithun have differed when it came to riwayah bil ma'na. So they have actually differed in their opinions when it came to riwayah bil ma'na. Some of them accepted it and some of them disregarded riwayah bil ma'na. So again, the people who accepted riwayah bil ma'na, they accepted riwayah bil ma'na with conditions. So you have, you know, فمنع فريق من أصحاب الحديث والفقه والأصول. So Muhammad ibn Sirin, the famous tabi'i, he disagreed with riwayah bil ma'na. You have to narrate the hadith as per the words of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And you have Abu Bakr al-Razi, who also sort of disagreed with that. But the majority of the Salaf Salihun, majority of them accepted this riwayah bil ma'na, so narrating a hadith not with the correct exact wording, but with similar wording. So you're narrating a hadith with the ma'na, but not the exact wording. So remember we mentioned the hadith about مثل الذي مثل البيت الذي يذكر فيه الله. So the example of the house where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioned, and the house that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not mentioned, it's like the example of a person who's living and dying. Right, and then you have another hadith which says the person who doesn't remember Allah and the person who remembers Allah, their example is like the example of the person who's alive and the person who's dead. Right, so these are two examples given. So the transmission of Imam Bukhari, as you can see here, the same hadith is transmitted by all these people. So you have Abu Awana, he transmits this hadith in the Mustakhraj. So Imam Muslim in his Sahih, he transmits this hadith. Imam Bukhari transmits this hadith, and the narration we're focusing on. Abu Ya'la also in his Musnad, he transmits this hadith, and in the Mustakhraj of Bukhari by Al-Ismaili, he transmits this hadith. So we can see all of these hadith scholars, at least Imam Muslim, Bukhari, and Abu Ya'la, they go back to Muhammad ibn al-Ala. So their teachers, Muhammad ibn al-Ala. So Bukhari and Muslim here, they share the same teacher. And Muhammad ibn al-Ala transmits this from Abu Usama, and he transmits it from Burayd ibn Abdullah. And you can see Abu Burda here, and Abu Musa al-Ashari radiallahu ta'ala anhu, from Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And then you have the hadith, مثل الذي يذكر ربه والذي لا يذكر مثل الحي والميت. So here, all of these hadith scholars, except for Imam Bukhari, that's why I've highlighted here, put it in red, Imam Bukhari, all of the hadith scholars except for Imam Bukhari, they have one wording. And Imam Bukhari has a different wording, right? So all of these, can you see my pointer? Yeah. All of these have one wording, and Imam Bukhari has another wording. So, people who are of the opinion, the Bukhari is the only way, right? And Bukhari takes precedence over everyone else. Here, Imam Bukhari, rahimahullah, even in Sighatul Tahdith, where he's narrating with all of the chains, this is not a mu'allaq, hadith mu'allaq, where he just narrates from the Sahabi, or he narrates from someone who, in the middle of the chain, who he hasn't got a musnad for, like is completely muttasil. This is just a complete chain. Last time we mentioned the mu'allaqat of Bukhari, he does mention riwayah bil ma'na. But Imam Bukhari, rahimahullah, he does riwayah bil ma'na all the time anyway. Like this is one example of riwayah bil ma'na that Imam Bukhari does. So Imam Muslim transmits from, and Ibn Hibban also transmits from Abu Ya'la, who transmits from Muhammad ibn al-Ala, the same hadith. And in the two mustakhraj, the mustakhraj of Abu Awana and the mustakhraj of Ismaili, they all transmit from the teacher of Muhammad ibn al-Ala, who's Abu Usama, from Burayd ibn Abdullah, from Abu Burda, from Abu Musa al-Ashari, from Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, right? So all of these scholars have one wording, Imam Bukhari has another wording, right? So here Imam Bukhari, rahimahullah, is narrating by ma'na, by meaning. So there's conditions for you to do riwayah bil ma'na. So for you to do riwayah bil ma'na, you have to know about the hadith, about the alfaz of the hadith, and you have to have an interpretation of the meaning. You have to have a correct interpretation of the meaning in order for you to do riwayah bil ma'na. And this is quite important. People just narrating hadith with the. We talked about just narrating a hadith or to the words of the effect of. This is a widespread thing. People saying, "Well, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said some words like this." I mean, there's 2 points to look at here. Transmitting knowledge, balighu anni walau ayah, transmit from me even if only a verse. This is one way of looking at it. The second way is, you lying on the Prophet. So if there's a greater fear of you lying on the Prophet, you'd rather not transmit compared to, having that, the doubt in that. So you have a side which says, you should transmit knowledge, a side who said, you should be correct in what you transmit. So I would err on the side of caution in this regard. If you don't know the exact wording, you shouldn't really be transmitting. Allahu ta'ala a'lam. So you have, there's not a specific book that contains hadith about riwayah bil ma'na. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. So the reason for making mistakes, al-lahan fil hadith wa sababihi. So this is why I said last time, the last thing which you do is narrate hadith or transmit hadith, because if you don't know the grammar and the language correctly, then it would be difficult for you to transmit it without doing tasheef, without moving things about. And there's a hadith, actually, it's not hadith, but it's a saying of Hammad ibn Salama, who said, مثل الذي يكتب الحديث ولا يعرف النحو مثل الحمار عليه مخلاة لا شعير فيها. So you're like a donkey and you don't even know what you're carrying. And then again, the second thing is al-akhdh min al-kutub al-suhuf, taking from books and scripture and not meeting shuyukh. Again, just because you know all the grammar and all the language doesn't mean you'll be able to interpret all the hadith and able to, because the main thing about transmission of hadith is the actual chain, and in the chain there are names, and Islam spread so fast that people who weren't natively Arab, they transmitted hadith and took hadith. All of these scholars here, none of them were Arab. Al-Bukhari, Muslim, Ibn Hibban, Abu Awana, Ismaili, all of them were from the non-Arabs, and whoever transmitted these, you need to hear the names. So that's the importance of hearing names and transmitting. Otherwise you will make mistakes if you don't know how the name is pronounced. Even though you know the grammar, you need to hear how a name is pronounced. Otherwise there will be mistakes when you're transmitting. For example, the Modi, when he said Donald Trump, even though he said it a million times, Donald Trump. Then the next discussion is on Gharib al-Hadith. Gharib al-Hadith is al-Gharib fi al-lugha huwa al-ba'id an aqrabihi, something which is really far from its likenesses, and something which is really strange. Gharuba ka karuma ghamuda wa khafiya, something which is really deep, intricate, it's very difficult.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Hayya as-salah, hayya as-salah, hayya al-falah, hayya al-falah. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. La ilaha illallah.
So Gharib al-Hadith is a specific genre in Hadith where you have really strange or difficult words which are not normal. For example, Dahman. This is a word which we'll talk about after. This is a word which is not usually used. He says, على مستقبل القبلة بوجهه. So he explains Abu Ubaid al-Qasim ibn Salam النهاية في غريب الحديث والأثر by Ibn Athir, and this is one of the best books when it comes to غريب الحديث, and Durr al-Nathir by As-Suyuti, and this is actually a refined book of An-Nihaya, and you have Al-Fa'iq bin-Zamakhshari, and you have other books as well. And then, okay, now the discussion about the Adab al-Muhaddith. So this is just things at the end of the book. So, the things which are really important for Muhaddith when you're transmitting Hadith is that you have a clear intention, ikhlasul niyyah, and we mentioned this right in the beginning as well. The intention that you have should be for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you should have a clean heart from the objectives of the dunya. For example, people, not in our tradition, obviously, in our context, but perhaps in the past, people could become a big muhaddith. So the being said from the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it should be with the intention of obtaining the reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You should listen to the Prophet. He went out of Makkah and he tried to advise him, said to him, Muslims, because he said, do you believe in Inna la nasta'inu bi mushrik? Again, they were right in the plain of Badr, right? They could see the enemy, and he thought, now the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam would want my help because now he's seeing the enemy. So he goes to him again and he said, do you believe that Allah is one and I'm the Messenger? Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And at that point he said, yeah. And he said, now you can fight. He didn't say anything else. So you shouldn't question anyone's intention. Even this guy only fighted to attain the spoils of Badr. Again, later on the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Usama bin Zayd, he went on an expedition towards the end of the life of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and someone he was fighting said La ilaha illallah, and Usama still killed him. And he went back to the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam and told him this, and he said the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam was really angry, and he goes, did you ashaqaqta qalba, did you open his heart to his niyyah? Even if he said it for lip service, he said it to save himself. You don't know his niyyah. So it's really important that we don't try and delve into other people's intentions, and their niyyah is with Allah. Mahallun niyyah al-qalb. Again, the duty of the muhaddith is that he holds gatherings of hadith. You brush your beard, you take care of your physical appearance. You sit in a way that is respectful, a way that you are, it's like you're in the company of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam as you are in the company of his words. And that the muhaddith, he looks at all of the people that you talk to us by the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the way of teaching. The individual of the gathering of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to think that they are being addressed by the Messenger. That's how he used to make people think. Right, not just me, not just you. He's looking at everyone, and everyone thinks that he's only talking to them. And there's obviously the miraculous nature of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam speech, but also a lesson for us as well when we speak to people, when we speak in groups. We should look around at everyone and speak to everyone in particular, not focus on particular individuals and not others. And that we start the gatherings, we start the gatherings, or we begin them. And we end them with the hamd of Allah and the salat and the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam and du'as that are appropriate for the time and context. So this is alhamdulillah, we start this as well when we start the gatherings of hadith, Mustalah al-hadith, we start with the hamd of Allah and the salawat and the Messenger. يتجنب ما لا تحتمله عقوب الحاضرين أو ما لا يفهمونه من الحديث. So that you abstain from discussions that the people don't understand, but obviously we will go through every discussion. And you mentioned beneficial lessons during the hadith. So أن يختم الإملاء بحكايات ونوادر لترويح القلوب وترد السعم. So you made people not bored. You mentioned stories, like I mentioned stories to you guys sometimes, about tasheef and all these kind of things. Okay, when is it appropriate for a muhaddith to start narrating hadith? So some people say when he's 50 years old, some people say when he's 40, other opinions as well. But I think the most authentic opinion is you should be narrating hadith when you are capable of narrating hadith, and you shouldn't kind of delay because you're sparing the words of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the most famous books when it comes to the adab of the muhaddith is Al-Jami' li-Akhlaq al-Rawi wa Adab al-Sami' Khatib al-Baghdadi, and Jami' Bayan al-Ilmi wa Fadlihi wa ma yanbaghi fi riwayatihi wa hamlihi Ibn Abd al-Barr. So now we have the adab of the talib. آداب طالب الحديث, and this is آداب طالب العلم كلها. So in terms of just the etiquette of a student of hadith, not just a student of hadith, but a student of every type of knowledge should have this etiquette, and we'll end on this before Salah.
You have to Salah?
Yeah, we're going to continue after Salah, inshallah. So again, it's the intention thing, تصحيح النية والإخلاص لله تعالى في طلبه, to have this specific intention for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and abstaining from attaining knowledge for the reasons of the dunya, to attain a position in government, not in our context, but in the context of the people of the past, or to acquire money. The hadith in Ibn Majah and Abu Dawud, the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he said, "Man ta'allama ilman mimma yubtagha bihi wajhu Allah ta'ala, la yata'allamuhu illa liyusiba bihi kharadan min ad-dunya, lam yajid عرف الجنة يوم القيامة." So whoever acquires knowledge for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that from the knowledge which should be acquired for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but they acquire for the sake of the dunya, and they won't experience Jannah on the Day of Judgment. And the third point for the adab of the talib is that you act upon the hadith that you hear. And these are some of the adab that are the same for the muhaddith and the same for the talib al hadith. And after salah, we're going to talk about some adab which are specific for the talib al hadith. Subhanallah bihamdihi, subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika, wa nashhadu an la ilaha illallah, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.